Hello, it's 4 p.m. It is the Etch Play Weekly live show. This week I'm joined by two very special guests. I'm joined by Bruce Grove from Polystream. Hello, Bruce. How you doing?
Hi Ben, I'm very well, thank you.
And I'm joined by Gina Fels from Tailwind Games. Gina, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Good. And if you're wondering why we've got guests on today's show, it's because we are talking about the metaverse. We wanted to talk about it for a while. We're going to talk about it today, and we're not experts in the metaverse, but Bruce and Gina are very well versed in it. So we thought, what better than get people who actually know what they're talking about onto the show, and they can enlighten us and they can enlighten everybody watching. So let's dive straight into it. So when we say metaverse, my understanding of it is we're talking about a virtual shared space, which is kind of a mix between the digital and the physical worlds. And it's if you have something that exists in one digital space, it then is able to exist in other digital spaces and not isolated. Am I right, or am I way off base? Is there more to it? Please correct me for how wrong I am. Bruce, why don't you go first? Too polite. Everyone's too polite.
So I think we've had the metaverse for a long time. I think if we look back to when the term was first coined, we didn't have the internet in this way. We didn't have a browser, so no one had even released the browser when Snow Crash was released. So when we first started talking about this virtual world, it was imagined in this story, and it was this great open world that you could jump into, powered by computers, powered by a corporation. It was an incredible story. It was incredibly visionary. But just under 2 years later, the browser was released and the internet was unleashed on the world. And all of a sudden, we could access all of these different experiences. And it opened up entirely new ways of gathering data, which we'd never seen before. So whether it's encyclopedias, books, film, video, music, everything, games, it's all started coming together. So I think really, if we go back all that way, we've already started getting there. I think the reason it's suddenly become popular and suddenly become into the mainstream is we've had the films starting to come out. So films like Ready Player One give us the oasis. They give us this imagined idea that we're all going to jump into a single virtual world. But if you abstract it out and you say, right, what's in the oasis? In the oasis, you've got a virtual museum, you've got virtual galleries, you've got virtual bars and clubs and dance halls, you've got video games that people are playing, video games that people are watching. So really what this is, I believe the metaverse is actually already happening, and it's our transition to bringing 3D and interactive spaces into the internet we already have. And then it will be about how we move between them. How do we go to a virtual museum? How do we go to a virtual concert? How do we hang out on something that's not just video, but feels more spatial and aware and surrounding? And the games technology, everything that we build, is going to allow us to build all of that. So it's going to be about cloud native technology, allowing us to open up and expand these spaces, create massive open worlds, but also just move seamlessly between different things. How do I go from a game to a concert to a car configurator without necessarily being a player? I want to just be able to make that accessible to anyone who wants to go to a car configurator. They shouldn't have to download a game to do that. They should be able to go to it as if it's a web page. But now they can go into it with friends. Now I can go to a game with friends, all of those kinds of things. So I think it's already here. We're just very rapidly accelerating it. And I think part of that is because in the last 2 years, we've suddenly become very conscious of being in third spaces. And so we're in a third space now. How do we want to actually build those third spaces has become front and center.
Cool. And Gina, what kind of role do you think that games plays in establishing the metaverse? Obviously, Bruce touched on it there, that games play a big part in it. So how do you see gaming fitting into the metaverse and kind of playing that role in helping to establish it?
I think ultimately, like the game spaces that we're seeing that are creating these spaces at the moment are ultimately like user generated content led. and it's ultimately like it's enabling these players and users to like express themselves in ways they can't traditionally do in the real world, which is great. It's unlimited creativity, and as we see it in gaming, it's like the new playground, and it's a space that's ultimately owned by the players. And us creators are mere facilitators of that play, which is great. It's a space that, coming from kind of a game developer point of view, you've never really had this synergy before between you and the players, and being able to really tap into kind of what the players want, what the community want, and building that synergy between you and the players is ultimately going to kind of like, the most successful studios and the most successful developers are going to find success there by listening to them. I think obviously we've had kind of user generated content games before, like Little Big Planet and Mario Maker. But what we're seeing from games like Minecraft and like Roblox is that they can be enjoyed together, and potentially even like, especially with Roblox with the studio, you can have collaborative user generated content and too. So it's making games together as a group. And for example, at Tailwind, we're about to do a game jam, and we're all going to go come together in Roblox Studio with the tool they've created, make an obby together, and instantly release it. It's just that real kind of great collaborative experience from start to finish.
Right. It feels like with things like Roblox, where it feels like there's all these different areas and spaces and worlds within Roblox, but it feels like the next step of the metaverse is to then grow out of that, so anything in Roblox can then be accessed elsewhere. Fortnite's kind of a similar thing, I guess, isn't it, when you have the concerts and there are things happening in Fortnite that aren't just the game, but I guess it's trying to open up those worlds so that they can interact with each other rather than live in isolation. And like, how do you see that going with the metaverse, Bruce, kind of opening it up and trying to make it accessible for everyone, really, and unisolating those worlds, I guess?
Yeah, and I think they're both great examples of how we do this. So we've got Unreal Engine is this incredible technology. Roblox is an engine underneath all of that people are building content on. Unity, but that tech is being used in lots of other places as well. So, for example, architecture, automotive is using it. Lots of people are using it for different experiences. The Mandalorian was built using Unreal Engine. So we're starting to see the game technology provide the foundations for experiences that have never been created before. And what we then have as well is the games, or the game platforms themselves. So if you use Roblox as an example, are demonstrating, okay, what else can we do here? So you have lots of games. That's great. And that's expected, because that's where a lot of our thinking and our socializing is starting within this space. But then you have a concert appears, and so Lil Nas does a big concert, and suddenly 37 million people are in there, but they're all Roblox players. And then Gucci does an experience that allows you to walk around the new Gucci lines, and effectively a virtual catwalk, but again, it's within Roblox. And so how do you make that accessible so that the Guccis of the world and the Lil Nas's of the world can actually reach an even wider audience? I mean, your first thought should be, oh my God, 37 million is incredible. But then you realize it's within that one world. And so how do we create this idea that these spaces should be easy to navigate, and that I don't have to already necessarily be a player in that space? What I actually care about is I'm a fan of Lil Nas, or I'm a person that wants to buy Gucci, and therefore I want to go where those experiences are, and it should be easy for me to get there, rather than the assumption that everyone's a player in the space. And I think that's the bit that will unlock the metaverse. What I think is incredibly powerful is, and we see this with UGC in all of these platforms, is that's become incredibly easy to, I wouldn't say easy to build, but we now have no code platforms that are making it easier for people to build on. We have light code platforms all the way through to people building ray traced models of a new building in whatever city they want to build it. All of that is going to start to unlock these experiences. The key to the metaverse will be how we then make it instant and be able to get into them easily. And everyone should just be able to click a link and say, I'm there. I want to go visit that building.
I want to just quickly touch upon what Bree said about like the whole like low code, no code platforms. It's really exciting because it really democratizes the whole kind of experience, and it opens the blasts the door wide open to people who may not have had access to developing these experiences to begin with. We all know that our industry sometimes has quite a high barrier to entry, and we are trying to make way for all these exciting new talents to come in. And I think the metaverse is a really exciting place for us to be able to really open those doors with these new platforms, with all this exciting tech that's making it more accessible, which is ultimately going to make the experience is more diverse and more accessible to a whole range of audiences which typically haven't had experiences in games made for them in the past as well. So I think it's just a really exciting space.
It feels like, as both of you were saying, kind of the technology to do this is getting there, but to me it feels like the challenge is potentially going to be the corporations' willingness to potentially work together. Do you see that as a challenge going forward? Because we're seeing with the Apple and Epic case that's been going on in the courts for the last few months, we know that falling out of that from some of the documents that came out, that Sony aren't fully on board with crossplay. They don't like it. They don't, they charge you to let you have that in your game. I see that as a challenge potentially going forward. Do you agree that that's going to be a challenge? And are there any other challenges you think that we could see in the metaverse, kind of expanding from where it already is?
Such a nascent space at the moment that I think we're a long way off. Well, I don't. Hopefully, we're not a long way off, but I think we are probably a long way off from having a true metaverse where everything is interconnected. I think like Facebook's plans for the metaverse are probably more realistic of what we might hope a metaverse might be. Like with them acquiring Creator, that's incredibly exciting, and being able to really realize that Facebook was probably one of the first 2D user-generated content platforms, and then being able to develop that into a 3D metaverse. That's really exciting, and yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I think that's really exciting anyway. But I think, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're that close from everyone being kind of like this cross-play experience yet. I do think that another space that are going to spearhead this cross-play is the NFT blockchain space, where they've got this kind of true ownership notion of being able to transfer items across, and I think they're going to spearhead that, and ultimately then other spaces are going to have to catch up in order to really kind of create these catch up with those experiences.
Yep. I think the Facebook example is really good, because the thing that Facebook has that I think plays very importantly on this is accessibility. It's accessible from any device. You can get into it, and it serves many different things. So whether it is your local neighbors talking to each other, groups, buy and sell groups, stores, videos, news, just socializing with people, it's got everything. It's got games. It is that space. And that can then morph into that different way. What it then becomes, I think it's the plumbing behind it. This is why we talk about cloud native and how do you get into it. It may be that I move from Facebook to Fortnite to Roblox. What I can't do is keep installing each of these just to go to see each experience. I have to be, and that's something that I don't really have to do with Facebook today. It's a browser-based experience. I just go into it. How do I move between these much bigger visual 3D interactive experiences? If I want to go and build my next car and take my family in to show them what it is I've built, that should be an easy experience. I need to be able to just send them a link and have them jump in. So I think that's going to be built on open standards. Who holds the keys to the door when I get to the web page? That's going to be the big piece, as Gina says.
Great. And just to close off, I'm going to ask almost an impossible question of you both, but let's try it anyway. In your wildest dreams, in maybe say 20 years' time, what do you think the metaverse could be, and what do you think we'll see if we're able to realize this dream of unlocking everything? What do you think it's going to look like? Which I appreciate is a very difficult question.
That's a great question. I'd like everyone to be able to feel like that they've got ownership and are able to participate, and like really kind of democratizing the whole process, and everyone feeling like they own a little bit of this metaverse, but as they do kind of in real life. And I think what is the most exciting aspect to me is that whole self-expression, really feeling like you're able to be who you truly are, if you may not be able to do that in real life.
Yeah, I think exactly that. Accessible. That for me is the key. It's got to be accessible. It's got to be there for everyone, and it's got to be easy. I have no idea how we're going to get into it in 20 years. I think in 20 years, AR will have come and gone potentially, and we'll be in some other way of connecting to it. Who knows? But I do think it will be accessible and just there for us, and it's going to be that in some form.
Brilliant. That's great. Gina, Bruce, thank you so much for joining me. This has been, I've had a great chat. Sorry for everyone chatting in the, I've got you on my other screen and I was so dialed into what was being said in front of me that I haven't read any of the comments that have been said. Bruce unfortunately has to dive off because he's got another meeting, but Gina's going to stick around for a little bit in the chat and I'm sure we'll be able to answer some of your questions. So do thank you for participating. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a great discussion and hope you have a good rest of your day. I'm going to throw it to a pre-recorded segment now, which is a review of Free Guy, which is in the cinemas at the moment. And when we come back, Dan Thomas will be here and we'll be chatting through the news. Thanks a lot and see you all soon.
Thank you.
Free Guy, coming out of Fox and starring Ryan Reynolds, is a film about a background character in a video game who realises that he's in one when he falls in love with a player, played excellently in this film by Jodie Comer. What follows is a quirky, occasionally romantic, but above all else funny adventure that lovingly references other franchises from the world of games, including Fortnite, Half-Life, and more. Several popular streamers from the real world pop up too, as the world watches Reynolds' character, known as Guy, attempt to save his world on live streams across the globe. The film gets a lot of mileage out of its video game trappings, with exaggerated action, goofy physics, and riffs on common player behaviours in online games.
Mondays, am I right, Joe? You said it, Guy!
Yeah! The game it takes place in is an open-world action title like Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row, so fans of those kinds of games in particular will be right at home here.
Is this what recreational drugs feel like?
Taika Waititi also stars as a narcissistic game producer and owner of the game. Taika has his persona dialed up to 11 and it works, producing some really funny moments. But despite good turns from Waititi and Comer, this film is really about Ryan Reynolds and showcases the zany kind of humour that's made films like Deadpool so popular.
Joe, this is scary! He's just resting.
In pieces! That man is dead!
He's so sleepy.
He's clearly having a lot of fun in the film and it shows, taking many of the film's best moments to the next level. No pun intended. Fans of games or of Reynolds will find a lot to like here. Reminiscent of films like The Truman Show and keenly aware of the rise of the metaverse, it's an enjoyable way to spend a couple of hours. It's performing well at the box office and it's in cinemas now, so if you're a fan of games and looking for a night out of the movies, this could be one to watch.
Hello, and we are back. That was Adam Burt's great review of Free Guy. I went to see it with him this week. I enjoyed it as well. Dan, are you going to go see Free Guy based on that review?
Yes, I will go and see Free Guy solely based on Adam's review because he's a wise man in the world of cinema entertainment.
He is. He knows his onions. He does know his onions. So how are you, Dan? Anyway, how's it going? Feels like things are busy.
Yes, I'm very
surviving.
Good. I am. I'm very good. We're very busy. That was a real nice little break to just tune in and listen to Bruce and Gina chat about the metaverse. They're both extremely informed on the subject. So yeah, very much enjoyed that, and I feel all the more intelligent for it. So thanks to them.
I agree. Right, shall we do some news? Should we go through some news?
Yes, let's blast through some news.
Oh, I hope whoops, I think I just messed up my cameras. Let me just go back. I'm gonna get told off for that later.
Oh no.
Uh,
I'll be after you.
Right, so the first bit of news. So it was reported this week that the developers of Outriders have said that they think perhaps the game is not profitable. So the game was developed and was released day one onto Xbox Game Pass. We spoke last week about The Ascent and how well that had done in sales, despite being on Xbox Game Pass. And we said, okay, that kind of confirms that it doesn't harm your sales. But People Can Fly, who are the developers of Outriders, have said they haven't received any payment from Square Enix, who are the publishers of Outriders, which leads them to suggest that perhaps the game has not been profitable. Otherwise, they would have seen some money come through, which is quite odd because it launched with exceptionally good player numbers. It had 3.5 million unique players recorded in its first month, which was obviously helped by being on Game Pass. But yeah, they're saying they haven't had any payment through, and that is perhaps because Square Enix is deeming that the game is not profitable, so there is no profits to share with People Can Fly. Dan, what's your take on that? It's a bit of an odd one.
It's a bit of a spicy one, and it's also, I think this news was kind of extracted out of a quarterly report from People Can Fly, and there's all sorts of I guess ifs, buts, and maybes around this. So we know that, I mean, obviously there's some contractual arrangement between Square Enix, the publisher, and the game developer, and there's something around, I believe there's kind of a term around recouping costs, and after that then payments will be made through. But also the platforms themselves, there's often a delay. So you make a sale on day one, you're not necessarily going to see that transaction paid from the platform to the sort of the account holder, which in this instance could well be the publisher. So you've got that delay, and it all depends on the terms of the agreement. So it may be, it's maybe being blown out of proportion. It's maybe a sticky conversation between the two parties. But yeah, I think there's probably a few attentive PR people try to pick up the pieces of this. So it wasn't necessarily formally announced, but it was shared in a quarterly report, and those are made public, and the media have jumped on it and put one and one together and made zero seemingly.
Yep. Next in the news is Among Us and Fortnite. We just spoke about Fortnite as part of our metaverse discussion. But this week Among Us were a little bit aggrieved because Fortnite brought out a new mode of play called Imposters Mode, and I'll just read what that mode entails. So the mode puts 10 players into a map. 8 are agents and 2 are imposters, and the 2 imposters are tasked with destroying the bridge or the map and killing the agents. And there's also a mechanism within the game within the game mode that you can call meetings and vote out people who you suspect to be imposters. Now, the reason that Among Us are a little bit aggrieved is that what I just read is essentially the entire premise of Among Us. Basically, it's Among Us into a game mode in Fortnite. And just to clarify, the guys over at Among Us are not aggrieved that it's a similar gameplay. They're fully aware that kind of their premise of game was not brand new to them. Things like Werewolf kind of had a similar mechanism, but they're taking umbrage at some of the maps look very, very similar. The layout, some of the terminology is the same. I mean, it's called Imposters Mode, and Imposters is what Among Us uses for in their gameplay. So just to read a quote from Victoria Tran, who is the community director at Innersloth, the creator of Among Us. She said it would have been really, really cool to collab, just add indie hours right now, and then, as I said, clarified game mechanics are fine, there shouldn't be gate kept, but at the very least, even different themes or terminology makes things more interesting. So a bit of a sticky one again, and it's not the first time that Epic and Fortnite have been accused of some level of plagiarism. Obviously, they had PlayerUnknown Battleground on the Epic Game Store, which was a hugely successful battle royale game. We know Fortnite wasn't originally a battle royale game, which it now is, and at the time when they introduced the Battle Royale, there were calls of, okay, that's copying PUBG. So it's not the first time that Epic have been accused of this, and it's happened again. So Dan, what's your take on this? We'll have some nice news in a minute. I'm giving you the sticky ones to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think Innersoft are absolutely within their rights to. It's kind of like, could you have put, just an attempt to distance yourself from the fact that you're trying to capitalize on the popularity? But equally, I guess from the Fortnite team's perspective, it's like they do want the audience to know, you know what that is, and we're introducing it. So they have to give enough, I guess. Explicit obviousness as to what they're doing, just so that the audience are aware. But it's kind of a shame because, as Victoria Tran said, it's kind of like this is an opportunity to collaborate. And for Fortnite, great. If you're Star Wars, we'll collaborate with you. But if you're a small indie, then we're just going to do it and stomp all over you. That's they would have perhaps done a lot better, been a lot better received to have perhaps just had that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the big mighty corporate putting the kind of punching down on the little guy rather than raising them up. And obviously Among Us was a very slow starter. I mean, I think it came out in 2018 and it didn't really blow up until kind of September of 2020 when it just exploded, and was hugely popular, hugely successful. Everyone was playing it. So yeah, it's disappointing to see, and as you say, a collab would have been nice. It would have been a nice way of approaching it and kind of bumping up both things, both IPs.
Yeah, they've got a lot more positive sentiment as a result. It would have had the same amount of reaction and coverage, and sure, everybody loves a bit of controversy, but I really think people are hungry for good positive news as well. So yeah, I think that's an opportunity missed there.
Definitely. But I said I was going to go to some more positive news. So this one this hits home with us. We like seeing this kind of thing. So a recent Sea of Thieves update has driven record player numbers for Rare. 4.8 million players logged in to play Sea of Thieves in the month of June. The reason we love this is we talk a lot at Etch Play about long life games, and Sea of Thieves is a great example of a long life game released a few years ago now, still going strong, and this far down the line to record player numbers is phenomenal. The milestone was revealed by the creative director Mike Chapman in the video update, which was regarding the game's most recent update, which is A Pirate's Life, which centers around Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, so a bit of a collaboration with them. But yeah, Sea of Thieves is a game similar. We talk about it often. We talk about No Man's Sky a lot. One of those games which keeps releasing new updates and free updates for players to enjoy, which extends the life of their game, which ultimately brings more players in, keeps players coming and playing it, which is beneficial to a game rather than necessarily just pumping out paid for updates and DLC and moving on to the next game straight away and leaving the first one. So yeah, a bit of positive news there, Dan. I'm sure you will be happy with this. I know you love long life games just as much as I do.
And I also love Rare as well. I think they're they're obviously a well-funded AAA studio, but they're also very charming. They've kept their humanity and friendliness, and they kind of had their early successes. They kind of perhaps got a little bit tied up with kind of the Kinect era and been a little bit typecast then, and then they've come out with something new. Sea of Thieves launched, I guess, reasonably, but it wasn't like the mega hit perhaps they were hoping. And to hear that they've now, they're doing collaborations with Disney, Pirates of the Caribbean, and hitting record numbers, a good few years after initial launch, that's really, really nice to hear. So well done, Rare.
Definitely. And let's close off the show with some more good news. Dan, I know you wanted to talk about the Green Game Summit, so why don't you hit us and we'll finish on some feel good. See, I structured this the right way, brought you down, and then I'm going to raise you up at the end. That's what we're aiming for here.
Very good, and this is really good news. This is a conversation that's happening. Our friends over at Yuki, they are doing a drive, kind of a big focus on sustainability. Obviously, the reasons we need to have this focus, maybe not necessarily as cheery, but the fact that the games industry is starting to take notice, play its role. And the Green Games Summit is happening in October, and this is basically an invitation, a call from Yuki to get the games industry together to acknowledge the part that we have to play in the global climate challenges that we've got, and I think it's really exciting to see people coming together, acknowledging these issues, and yeah, well done, Yuki, for putting that together. I'll stick a link into the chat. There's a link there through to the event, and they've also got a really handy kind of guide on what games companies can do and how they can play their part. So yeah, a nice positive action from Yuki and the wider games industry, which is very nice indeed.
Brilliant. That's what we love to see. As Dan said, he's just popped a link in the chat, so if you want any more information about that, hit that link.